actually went to Minnesota State Mankato for college. I didn't go because I wanted to. My dad thought that I should go instead of farming, which I thought was strange. I wanted to farm like my dad did, but I know there's probably a lot of farm kids in here. You guys, this is a big farming community. But what's cool about solar is I never intended to get into it. I actually went to school, got a business degree, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, went to my first interview, and I wore a tie for the first time, you know. I thought, this is strange, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, and I didn't. So I just said, the heck with that, I'll just do construction. That's what I did. With a 4-year degree, I just went out and started building things, and did some local business. Eventually, somebody came to me and said, Aaron, we can't find anybody to put up a wind turbine for us. A small farm-scale wind turbine. I don't know if you've seen the one south of town. I know they didn't work for a long time, but they work now. Finally got them working. But that's how I got into business. So somebody asked me if I'd do it, and I said, yeah, I'm up for the challenge. So most of what I've learned isn't from the school level, experimenting and stuff like that. It's actually taking the products that are already in the marketplace, installing them, dealing with the failures, and that's when I learned a lot about electricity. And eventually I got into solar as a result of being involved with the wind turbines. What's really funny is, with solar, there's a lot of folks that still don't believe in it or understand it, just because it's not common. What's really funny, I always get people that ask me, they go, how'd you get in the solar business? And I say, well, actually President Obama sent me a check for like 20 grand, and they said they needed somebody in the solar business in Glen. They go, really? I go, no, not really, they didn't do that. But so much of this industry is a little bit political, unfortunately. And really it's not. And I'm going to show you guys and tie this back into the business, into the marketplace a little bit. Like a lot of what we're talking about, you guys are going to build stuff. There's a lot of products that are in the market that they're already done. We call it, it's just plug and play. So a customer will ask me, how does that solar work? It's easy. You can do it yourself. So I do work with a lot of do-it-yourselfers. I enjoy doing that. But just to give you a quick example, I mean, a solar panel, simple. You guys have all seen one. There's nothing complicated to it. Just two wires, a positive and a negative on the back. That's it. People always ask me about new technology about solar. There really isn't anything new. It's still using the same material called silicon, the semiconductor that these guys were talking about earlier, and that's what's still commonly used. All the new technology is the footprint. So the panel that's on the boat back there is 80 watts, I think is what I read on it. This panel here is 260, but really this footprint accommodates a 300 watt solar panel. So what's really changed, there's no new technology. These panels look identical. I mean, a cell is a cell. So everybody else asking, well, should I wait till the new technology comes out? There isn't any new technology. They're using some different semiconductors, but it doesn't make business sense because they're too expensive to use. Silicon, I'll show you in this video, is widely available. So solar panels are actually considered a commodity. So if you're in the farm area, we talk about commodities, a bushel of corn or a bushel of soybeans. What that means is, it doesn't matter if the corn came from Illinois, Iowa, or Minnesota, it's still a bushel of corn. The same is true in the solar industry. There's over 100 solar panel manufacturers, maybe 500 worldwide. They're all over. And obviously there's testing and they have to be in certification and stuff like that, but when it comes to different brands of solar panels, there's really good and there's good, and that's it. The solar panel is a very simple device. Now, as far as the plug and play, this is what I like to show people, and they still don't believe me. If I can take this panel, set it in the sun, it's producing DC power. And I can take this microinverter and plug the solar panel into it, the positive and the negative. You can't screw that up, it's just male and female, they plug into each other. I could cut the wires on this, I could wire it right to this outlet, and I'd be producing power. It's a grid-tied system. So this is the simplest way to show, you'll see in my pictures, the systems we put on people's houses, on barns, ground mount systems, that's it. These are grid-tied systems. We go from the panel to an inverter, right to the grid. But we don't access it at the outlet, obviously. We access it at the breaker panel, in your garage or in your basement. Or we access it at the meter, depends on what size system it is. But that's it. So you just plug it in, and it works. Alright, I'm going to show you a video that goes even one step further than the guys before me that talks about, because I still some days forget because I get so involved in the business side of it, how the electrons really work. And I found a good video on YouTube that I think does a good job of explaining this.
It's not going to happen for you. Not in a million years.
But I'm sure that
I want to.
The Earth intercepts a lot of solar power, 173,000 terawatts. That's 10,000 times more power than the planet's population uses. So is it possible that one day the world could be completely reliant on solar energy? To answer that question, we first need to examine how solar panels convert solar energy to electrical energy. Solar panels are made up of smaller units called solar cells. The most common solar cells are made from silicon, a semiconductor that is the second most abundant element on Earth. In a solar cell, crystalline silicon is sandwiched between conductive layers. Each silicon atom is connected to its neighbors by 4 strong bonds, which keep the electrons in place so no current can flow. Here's the key. A silicon solar cell uses 2 different layers of silicon. An N-type silicon has extra electrons, and P-type silicon has extra spaces for electrons, called holes. Where the 2 types of silicon meet, electrons can wander across the P-N junction, leaving a positive charge on one side and creating negative charge on the other. You can think of light as the flow of tiny particles called photons shooting out from the sun. When one of these photons strikes the silicon cell with enough energy, it can knock an electron from its bond, leaving a hole. The negatively charged electron and location of the positively charged hole are now free to move around. But because of the electric field at the p-n junction, they'll only go one way. The electron is drawn to the N side, while the hole is drawn to the P side. The mobile electrons are collected by thin metal fingers at the top of the cell. From there, they flow through an external circuit, doing electrical work like powering a light bulb, before returning through the conductive aluminum sheet on the back. Each silicon cell only puts out half a volt, but you can string them together in modules to get more power. 12 photovoltaic cells are enough to charge a cell phone, while it takes many modules to power an entire house. Electrons are the only moving parts in a solar cell, and they all go back where they came from. There's nothing to get worn out or used up, so solar cells can last for decades. So what's stopping us from being completely reliant on solar power? There are political factors at play, not to mention businesses that lobby to maintain the status quo. But for now, let's focus on the physical and logistical challenges. And the most obvious of those is that solar energy is unevenly distributed across the planet. Some areas are sunnier than others. It's also inconsistent. Less solar energy is available on cloudy days or at night. So a total reliance would require efficient ways to get electricity from sunny spots to cloudy ones, and effective storage of energy. The efficiency of the cell itself is a challenge too. If sunlight is reflected instead of absorbed, or if dislodged electrons fall back into a hole before going through the circuit, that photon's energy is lost. The most efficient solar cell yet still only converts 46% of the available sunlight to electricity, and most commercial systems are currently 15 to 20% efficient. In spite of these limitations, it actually would be possible to power the entire world with today's solar technology. We'd need the funding to build the infrastructure and a good deal of space. Estimates range from tens to hundreds of thousands of square miles. Which seems like a lot, but the Sahara Desert alone is over 3 million square miles in area. Meanwhile, solar cells are getting better, cheaper, and are competing with electricity from the grid. And innovations like floating solar farms may change the landscape entirely. Thought experiments aside, there's the fact that over 1 billion people don't have access to a reliable electric grid, especially in developing countries. many of which are sunny. So in places like that, solar energy is already much cheaper and safer than available alternatives like kerosene. For say, Finland or Seattle though, effective solar energy may still be a little way off.
I thought that was a good way of showing. I never really understood how the two different layers of silicon, how the electrons move. But anyways, it works. So, leave the lights off. I'll show you some pictures. So if you guys drive down the road, have you noticed all these solar farms that are going up? It seems more and more common. They're not involved in any of those at this point. Big business doesn't necessarily mean it's good business. It's just a lot of red tape. So let's see, what did I want to touch on here before I get into some of my install pictures here? Solar panel, how it works. So I heard you guys talk earlier about the MPPT. We were talking about voltage and amps. So believe it or not, we face these panels to the south because that's just the path of our sun. Solar panels work just as good in Minnesota as they do in Arizona. Because the colder it is, the higher the voltage goes. So the temperature dictates the voltage. The minute that there's light, there's voltage here. This panel, for example, has 31.4 volts. The minute it's light. So this panel sitting on your roof or on the ground facing south, right? On most of our installations, sun comes up over there. The minute it's light, there's 30 volts here. Problem is there's no amps. Yeah, there's current, but there might be 0.01 amps, so you really still don't have any power. So as the sun becomes more direct and comes around, the amps go up. When the sun is directly parallel like this to the panel, so that on the back, the panel will max out at 8.3 amps. Okay, so if you think, I don't know if you guys, how much you guys talk about electricity in science class, but power is volts times amps equals watts, is what we call power. So if you think about electricity like water, it's simple. The volts is the speed of a river or a creek, and the amps are the width or the thickness of the river. So the Mississippi River, low voltage, but it's wide, has lots of water, so high amps. So those MPPT tables, what they're doing, or those controllers, they're taking the power that's available, all these amps, but in the voltage, and they're taking the amps and converting it over to the proper voltage. You got to take that river, dam it up, and then feed it to your battery at the right speed. Electricity correlates directly with water that way. So, I mean, that's what a battery is. You're filling up a reservoir, and then you're pulling off of it. So I thought that was interesting, and the way that I found out that it works in the morning is I forgot to disconnect from the system up on top, and I was making a change on an install, and I grabbed a hold of the DC wires, and there was 30 volts per panel. You put 10 of these together in series, we have 300 volts. So I touched 300 volts DC, but it was only at like 1 amp. So it works, trust me. We had a funny situation about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. 3M has an energy efficiency conference, or a little show for the employees, just kind of break up the monotony of winter. It was during the winter time. They've got a breezeway between their plants. And they said, Aaron, would you come on over? We need a solar and wind guy, just to put some brochures on and stuff, and bring some stuff over to show folks. And everybody's walking through on lunchtime, or their break time, and I was there most of the day. And I had a panel there and a bunch of information, and people are walking up, and they asked me how it worked, and I knew some of the folks there, and had a lot of great conversations. Then here comes, must have been an executive. He's all decked out in his suit, and the breezeway is about 12 feet wide, and he's staying as far away as he can. And he's walking along the back wall like this, and he's looking at the solar panel. I go, can I help you with something? Can you get a question? He goes, oh no, that stuff doesn't work. That's what he told me. It doesn't work, right? So that's some of what we deal with in this industry, and it's kind of funny to me, so I just said, I'll make a deal with you. How about we go outside, it's sunny today, I'll just bare the wires on those panels, and you grab a hold of it and tell me it doesn't work. well, what do you think would happen? I go, I don't know, it might stop your heart. I don't know, but let's try. Right? So it's just, I deal with a lot of folks. I still go to family gatherings, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I still have people in my family that still think solar doesn't work. They still think that I'm part of some government conspiracy program that installs solar panels. It's unbelievable. But we're getting better through education, and the biggest educational piece is you drive down 212 towards the metro, and you see the solar farm by Bongers, right? So this is no joke. I'd go to church on a regular Sunday morning, and all the farmers would ask me, about the wind turbines, the solar panels, this and that. How does it work here? Tell me how it works. What's the payback? How long does it take to pay this back? And I give them all the numbers and everything, and God, I just don't know about that. I can't believe so-and-so put a solar system up. Now they drive down the road, they see all these solar farms going up, they come to church and they go, Aaron, did you see that solar farm? This stuff really works. I go, yeah, that's what you've been asking me for the last 5 years and I've been telling you, but they didn't believe me. So we have a serious believability problem with this industry. You talk about electric cars, solar, anything like that. It's just not the status quo. And you just don't get insulted by it or don't let it bother you. It's just people don't have the information. And it's not something that people are regularly aware of. So I think that's one thing, especially with you guys working on these electric cars. I think it's pretty awesome. But I think you still have to keep in perspective that some people just don't understand it or don't want to understand it. So I know Mr. Sunblad, I had a little bit of a idea what he wanted me to talk about. Oh, electric vehicles. We got to tie this back to electric vehicles eventually. I'm going to show you a bunch of installations that I've done for solar that's grid tied. There are no batteries. Okay, so the grid goes down, the solar goes down. What these people are doing is when they're home using the power, they're generating it. When they're not home, it's just going back to the grid, and they get paid for it, or they get a credit for it. They're just trading kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour. But eventually, when we get this back to batteries, which is the future of all solar and all energy, it's going to come back to storage. Because there's plenty of sunlight on a daily basis to power everything. But obviously we need something at night. We've got lots of wind farms that's doing the job, but batteries is what's going to make solar more viable for everybody. I'm going to show you some install pictures here. So this is a simple breaker panel in somebody's basement. So you open that up, you got all your breakers, right? 15 amp, 20 amp, 30 amp, 40 amp. When we install a grid-tied system on somebody's house that's maybe 10 kilowatts, the average size home will fit about 7 to 10 kilowatts. All we're doing is we're putting in another breaker. 40 amp breaker, 50 amp breaker, depending on the size of the system. And that's it. It's alternating current, it goes forwards and backwards, so we can feed that panel with another source. So on the outside of the house, you'll see, the panels in the basement or in the garage. On the other side, you see the meter, electric meter. So what happens is this solar, so you can barely see it on the edge up here. So we come down to DC power, we feed the inverter. That's a microinverter I showed you, that goes on each panel, but here it's a central inverter. All the panels come back and feed into this central inverter. We'd install a different breaker panel here, but anyways, energy runs through there. Here's a disconnect for safety. We come to the solar meter. Through the solar meter, back to a junction. So here, when the solar's working, the power goes through the meter. They track the solar production because they get extra credit for that. Then it gets to this junction box. When it gets there, if they're home and they need the power, it's just going to go into their house. Their meter is not going to take anything from the utility over here. It's just going to feed their house. Now nobody's home. They're not using electricity. Now it says, oh, we don't need to go there. Then it goes backwards through the meter, back to the utility. So up until about 3 years ago, there was only one meter. This meter wasn't here, wasn't required. So now we're going to tie this back into the politics of it. So basically, a group of folks got together in Minnesota, politicians, and said, we really need to figure out how to move solar forward. So they needed to do a study. And they called it the value. What's the value of solar? What is it really worth? because we have all the, fossil fuels do their job. I mean, they do a really good job. Coal does a good job, nuclear does. Obviously, we have the pollutants and then the waste with the nuclear we don't know how to deal with. But believe it or not, like if you look at your electric bill, I mean, you guys being youngsters, yeah, maybe you don't see the electric bill, but we pay about 12 cents a kilowatt hour is what we currently pay. At peak demand, during the middle of the day, in the summer when everybody's air conditioners are running, businesses are going, factories and everything like that, the power company might have to pay as much as 30 cents a kilowatt hour from their source. The co-op, McLeod County Co-op, or the municipal plant here in Glencoe, or Xcel Energy, they got to go in the open market and buy that power. Then they still sell it to you for 12 because it averages out. They still make money. But guess what? Solar peaks 12 to 1 to 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon when demand peaks, right? That panel I just showed you the amps coming over. Power's peaking on all the solar installations at the same time. So they did this study and they said, well, if you're going to pay the coal guys and the nuclear guys and everybody else 30 cents a kilowatt hour, you sure as heck are going to pay the solar folks a premium as well, because there is no pollution and there is no waste, right? So that's how they determined the value of solar. So what they got it down to was, if you have a solar system, if you don't use it, you send it back, you get 12 cents. Okay, that's you get, there's what you don't have to buy, and then you also get 12 cents for what you send back. Now on top of that, they put the solar meter in here, you get another 8 cents. Okay, not every utility does this. Only the investor-owned utilities do it right now. There is 1 or 2 co-ops that do it. So these folks, if they generate 10,000 kilowatt hours for the year, 10,000 times 8 cents is 800 bucks. Okay, so at the end of the year, they're going to get $800, which is kind of like just getting a premium. They get a check for 800 bucks, whether they use the energy or not, or if it goes back to the grid. That's above and beyond. So that's what's driving a lot of the installations, is this extra money that's generated. They're getting rewarded for creating clean energy. And the cool part is here is the energy, it's real efficient. It goes right to the house where they're using it. Versus the coal plant has got to travel 100 miles, go through here to this substation here and here. So it's very efficient that way.
Does the power company take into account the discrepancy between your the cost of the energy that you produce versus when you use it? So if you're producing,
Not yet.
yeah, because if you get 12 cents for every kilowatt hour,
Yep.
but then you're using it when it's 16 cents a kilowatt hour,
Yeah,
you
no.
end up,
No, you just get you're always paying 12, but the value of solar is really why I brought up those other rates. In other parts of the country, like California, they might have time of use. So if you're gonna get ready in the morning at 7 o'clock and dry your hair with a blow dryer, you might pay 25 cents a kilowatt hour. It's where they're metering right down to a 15-minute increment, and you pay a premium. What that does is, all that does is move the demand. So somebody who's really frugal says, I'll just get ready at 6 in the morning. So then I'm gonna pay a lower rate. So what they're doing now, they shifted that demand, all that big peak of power that's needed, they moved it over here. The power companies need to do that, because you gotta keep building your infrastructure to handle these peaks. So you can shave the peak off, you can save lots of money. I mean, just in general. All right, let's go through a bunch of install pictures here. So solar really does work. I've been doing it since 2009. Probably got about sideways. That was just a trench I was showing. Okay. A lot of times they go in the house. This is an example here where the house is sitting here. We trenched over, came over to the garage. You can see the racking on top of the garage. It's real simple to install. These are the panels on the roof. It's just 30 of those. The average installation, this costs $25,000. So that's another thing, that there's kind of a disconnect right now. So this individual spends $25,000, covers all their electricity, all of it. So they'll have their money back in about 7 years. Okay? Now they own it. So here's the big confusion. People think, I have this electric bill over here for 200 bucks. And I've got to make the loan payment or spend another 25 grand on solar. No, you spent 25 grand. There's no more $200 electric bill over here. That's gone. It might be 15 bucks or 20 bucks because you're still paying for the meter fee. just some basic fees that you have. So in 7 years, that's paid off. He's not paying the $200 anymore. He owns his electric system. Does it make sense? So people say 25 grand, that's a lot of money. I used to say this, again, the local folks that I bump into from time to time at the gas station, man, I can't believe that guy spent 30 grand on a solar system. When does he get his money back? What's his payback? I said, what's the payback on your $60,000 truck? Right? What's the payback on that? You know? I said, you know, get them to laugh a little bit, but then I said, basically, they have their money back in 7 years. They won't believe it unless they talk to the people. And then if you look at it, now this is another thing that blows my mind. And I'm just telling you guys this stuff because I want you to understand how developed this industry is. And solar is not going away. This is everything as far as energy goes. Solar batteries will be everything. Okay, so if you've got $25,000 and you've got it in your 401k, okay, and you've got it's in Wall Street and your financial advisor does all that, you're praying for 7%. Okay, you're hoping for 10 in a good year, and you're hoping it doesn't crash, right? You got $25,000 parked over there. If you take that 25 grand out of the market and put a solar system up, you're looking at 15 to 20% return on your money year over year. Because the value of that electricity every year, that's what it ends up being, 15% back. And electricity keeps going up by a penny every year, or 2 cents every year, so your rate of return keeps going up. Well, the banker will tell me, yeah, but there's a life expectancy on this, it's not going to last forever. Well, right now they're warranted, all equipment's warranted for 25 years. Life expectancy is actually 40 years on a solar system. They lose a little bit of power over time, about 5 to 10%. So that argument, there's not much there, the longevity's there. People can't get financing though to do it, because the bank doesn't know, this is what a local banker told me, he goes, Aaron, I don't know how to repossess that. Right? I can go pick up a tractor or a truck or a car if they don't make the payment, but I can't repossess that. I said, well, we'll figure it out. I know how to do it. I'll take it out. I said, this is old money. This is their electric bill. They've been paying their electric bill their whole life. So now they're just shifting the money, folks. This is just the same money. This is old money. Instead of giving the power company $200, there's enough, electricity is worth enough on the east and the west coast, so they're paying 25 cents. People, it's no money down. You don't have to pay nothing down. It's finance for them. They pay less than their electric bill, and then the banker still gets to make the interest, and they pay this thing off in maybe 10 years because they financed it. That's it. Now we're going to go one step further. I'll go through a couple pictures here. You see some more installs. Go ahead.
Just a question, like how you talked about like the warranty. How do they stand up to like hail and like damage?
Yeah, that's the number one question that I get. So the hail, they're warranted to handle up to 1-inch hail up to 50 miles an hour. That's just a generic term, certification for insurance companies to use. I'm glad you brought this up, but if you Google Solar World, that's the brand panel that I've got right there. They've got a video online about their testing. They drop big steel balls on there. I don't know how much they weigh to simulate the hail, and it's hard to watch it because you're like waiting for the glass to crack, or explode, and it doesn't. So I've never had a hail issue, and we've got thousands and thousands of panels installed since '09. I think we either had a stray little meteorite or a stray bullet that got one of our panels, because I don't think it would have been one piece of hail, right? So no, hail's not a concern. The only concern is snow. In the wintertime like this weather we just had, it was kind of icy and turned to snow. That just sucks. There's nothing I can do about that. It covers the panels, and now it's not going to warm up for another week maybe. So there you just lose production. It's just part of living in Minnesota. You got me on that train of thought now. Here's the other thing. Okay, so we put them on the roofs. This is a picture here. Go back here one. So people think this is weird that we're putting it on these shingled roofs, right? I got to drill a hole in the roof. So believe it or not, for me, the most important part of the whole installation is when I drill through the roof. I can't have a water leak. Never had one, can never have one. That would be a huge liability for me as a business. So obviously, I was being in construction, it was natural, I'm a carpenter, so I built houses, so I know where the trusses are. On a shed, I know where the purlins are. I know where all the framing is, which is critical, because I can measure and I can hit that truss dead center with the proper fastener and the proper silicone, because that's got to stand up for the next 25 years. Okay? So that's all fine and dandy. Everything gets installed right. Here you can see there's a hole. This is just a rooftop box. So this, there's a hole here. Conduit goes down into the attic, and the inverter's inside the house. It's just showing that. But these shingles, they're not going to last 25 years, right? Unless they cover their whole roof. Now the shingles are good for a really long time. But most people cover half of their roof, a portion of their roof. People say, well, that's going to be a nightmare. I got to come and, you know, what if I got to re-roof? Or if I get hail damage or storm damage? We finally had our first job this summer. A roofing company called me up in St. Peter and said, we've got a roof we got to take off, and there's solar panels on it. We have no idea what to do. We'll pay you to do it. There's money in the insurance. The insurance company said there's money in it to take the solar panels off and put them back on. Well, that's slick, that's easy. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough, you know, it was a fair price to do it. But here's what I've been learning is that the insurance, like if you put a $25,000 solar system on your house, you might only pay another $50 for your insurance every year. There's no special risk having a solar system on your house. None. It's the main question I get from folks who are like, well, how much is my insurance going to go up? It's just replacement cost. So you call up State Farm and you say, just put 25 grand solar system on, okay, then your premium goes up $50 a year. So the insurance company already has this figured out. So we went over there, we took it off, put it back on, and we got paid. So it's not going anywhere. This is common, and what's even more exciting, I don't think I'll ever go back to building houses, but if I was a young builder, entrepreneur, I'd be building houses brand new where the roof, the entire south facing of the roof, it was solar from day one. Now, the cost of the solar is in your mortgage. It's priceless. I mean, it's so simple. So this industry is, there's just so much to talk about.
Actually, I've got a question about that. So as like different panels change and depending on the manufacturer, I know Tesla is coming out with their solar roofs. You know, how does that change for you?
Yeah, I get the question all the time about Tesla stuff. Tesla's a great manufacturer, great name. There's a lot of companies that are at the same level or already ahead of Tesla. Tesla gets all the PR. They're in the business of raising capital. Okay, another thing I learned in life, the stock price is based on future revenues, not based on your past performance. Okay, so you got to make sure you get a lot of good PR so you can get that stock price up, so you can get the money you need to go build stuff. Tesla's very good at that. But the roof tiles that they're talking about, that'll come out at some point, even if they do they haven't produced them yet, there may be next year, they're testing and everything, they got to go through certification. Electrical certifications are tough. It costs millions of dollars because it's all about safety. So products can be insured. It's all about fire safety. But Minnesota's climate, any northern climate's going to be real tough on a product like that. So you're probably not going to see that product even work in a northern climate. So, yeah, that's all I can say about that, is that they've just, you know, solar-wise, California, they might, well, if they're paying 25 cents, double what we pay, and maybe more, a more expensive product can make more sense on paper. So there you might see it. But yeah, good company. They're bringing a lot of this stuff, you know, to the public.
But even you know, beyond those, I mean, those are a fun example. But you know how manufacturers, you know, just these panels, you know, which manufacturers there are, who's supplying it at a better price.
Yep.
Do you like contract with one of them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so when I first got in this business, you know, somebody said, it was here in Blanco, over in the northwest part of town. It was my family doctor growing up. He said, Aaron, I heard you're in the renewable energy business. We just put up a couple wind turbines. I said, yeah, just got started. Well, I want a solar system. I said, I don't know anything. I'm going to call up a company that does it, I'll sell you everything for cost and I'll learn. That's what we did. So does a company in Rapid City, South Dakota. Believe it or not, in 2009, there was not anybody here in Minnesota that I could go to help me put up solar system. Nothing. They go all the way to Rapid City, South Dakota. So they helped us do this little project here in town, a ground mounted system. And we just trusted that, I mean, we paid retail for everything, but we did it for cost for the customer just to learn. Well then, the next job, I had to look at the numbers, you know, what people were willing to pay. And I thought, you know what, it's too risky for me to send money to a manufacturer in California, send them a check for 10 grand for solar panels. If the solar panels don't come, I don't have any recourse. You know, I'd have to drive to California, you know, so I'll just pay retail. So I paid retail for panels from that company in Rapid City for about 3 years. So my margins were pretty small. There was a lot left on the table because I wasn't dealing direct with the manufacturer. Well, finally, the manufacturer started calling us because solar was getting popular, especially in Minnesota. They said, Aaron, we'll sell you panels for X if you buy this many. So I finally took the risk and did that. I did that for about 4 years, and that worked out good. That actually made the business worth doing. And then last year was the coolest thing. A big electrical wholesaler in Minneapolis called Warner Electric. They've been around for like 75 years. They're in the Midwest. They started stocking solar panels and inverters and the racking and all the other components. Not direct to the manufacturer anymore, and they called on us and they said, would you buy equipment from us? And I said, well, I'm already buying it direct. We're not much more than direct. So I looked at the prices. Now I pay just a little bit more than going direct. In Warner, they put their name out there. They vet all these manufacturers. They know if that manufacturer is going to be around in 10 years or not. And you get an account, right? So I can go in there now and pick up $20,000 worth of solar panels, put them on the house, put the inverter on, make sure it works, turn it on before I pay for it. So you can see how mature the industry's gotten. So rather than all of us solar guys, renewable energy guys, taking risks, buying stuff, figuring out what to buy, now we have just a regular electrical wholesaler that's taken almost all the risk out for us. They're dealing with the manufacturer, and now this is just regular business. So that's, as far as the manufacturers go, if you want to get the rebate, and I'll tie it into this. So this customer here, this is just a disconnect for their solar system, that's for safety. Here's their solar meter, which wasn't installed yet. Here's their original meter, and here was their off-peak meter. Okay? This wasn't here before, right? That wasn't there before the solar. This was there because some people, a lot of folks, let the utility turn off their air conditioner or in the afternoon to save energy, and then they get a discount on their bill, or they let them buy electricity at a discount at night. Like if they've got in-floor heating or want to run their heating systems at night, you get electricity for half the price. So that's why you see another meter there. I wasn't going to say about that now. Lost my train of thought. On the, I don't remember. I'm getting old.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. I don't know all these pictures. Here. This is just, solar's pretty simple. Like I call it plug and play. This one was a little more complex. You know, this is an old service that Excel had, old meter. So we had to bring a new service in. So this is just a picture of some of the work that's involved. And I love doing this work. So I'm not an electrician, so I have to have an electrician do the final electrical work with me. But my favorite thing to do is go out on a nice sunny day, put the racking in, and put 15 or 20 panels up. Electrician shows up the next day, we get everything wired up, we turn that thing on. I mean, it's just so, there's just a natural high that you get from it, you know? Yeah, it's just really cool. It's just becoming more and more common to see this. This is my favorite project right here. This is a round roof barn out in Wilmer. And we've had people say that he's a farmer, he's also got an automotive business, and I just run into people and say, have you seen that solar system by Wilmer that Jim has? No, never seen it. I said, it's been up for 4 years. It blends in so well with the roof. People drive by, and they can't even, they think it's the roof, you know? So we're really proud of that one.
So that system there, how much would that one run?
That is a 20 kilowatt system, and paid about 50,000 for that. So that's double what a house would need. But this is cool, this is fun for me, not being an engineer, but just being kind of like, you grow up on a farm, you fix stuff, you take stuff apart when it doesn't work, right? You're just inquisitive on how it works. So technically, I'm an unlicensed solar engineer. I mean, I do all the one-line diagrams, I do all the electrical specs, all the calculations. I can be an engineer, I'm just not licensed, right? And here, what was fun is they get a more level production through the year, because you see the different tilt on the panels. Yeah, so in the summertime, in the middle of summer, these panels do real well up here. But I put them on a separate inverter, because otherwise, the other strings of other groups of panels would drag it down. So to make it efficient, there's 4 inverters on this system. I think I've got 1 inverter for the top section, 1 inverter for the middle, and then this bottom row, which is pretty flat, works great in the wintertime. So he gets a real nice, consistent production through the year. And this is a ground mount system. These are fun too for the folks that want to put them on their house. This guy, this is up by Delano. Meet the neatest people in this business. And we're staking this out where we wanted to put it, and I've got this little computer. Takes a picture of the horizon. If there's a tree over here, and it's going to shade it, it'll say how much production you would lose. We call it solar access. Really simple tool, kind of expensive little thing. But anyways, I said, what about, I think we should put it here, here. I'm talking with the customer, and he says, well, don't worry about those trees right there. I'm cutting them down. I want to make sure my neighbor sees this. Because his neighbor is a complete energy hog. I mean, they just don't get along. So I just thought that was kind of funny. So, and they did, while we were working on this, the neighbor called to make sure he had a permit. So we still do with that, And the guy, he's got 10 acres. I mean, let the guy live. He just wants to put up a solar system. So I enjoy doing this type of work, drill the holes, pour the concrete, put the pipe in. This is just a simple couple-day project. So it's like a 5 kilowatt system, inverter disconnect, go underground, go up to the main service at the house. There's another ground mount system. This one is interesting. You guys touched on this earlier about the reflectability of a panel. This job is in Egan. Just finished this one about 2 months ago. And it's kind of a unique property. He's got like 5 acres right in the middle of Egan. And he had to go to the city to get a permit. And the neighbor came and said, you can't put that solar system up there. It's super reflective. And I'm going to have all this glare and all this sun shining. You can't do that. And I told the customer, I said, there is no reflection at all. All the light is absorbed. It's the exact opposite. So here we are in Egan, right? Pretty big town. In the metro area. He goes to get a permit, and the folks there have never heard that question before. People unaware. So it's just a lot of education we need to do, to get people to understand, there's no reflectability whatsoever. It absorbs all the light. This is the system here in Glencoe that we did. And all these big solar farm projects that you see, if you guys want to stop and eat, we can stop and eat, or you guys can eat while I talk.
Go ahead.
I'll just take another 10 minutes or so. So this is the system here in Glencoe that we did. The building behind it used to be Norwood Young America, or whatever it was called, Norwood Young America, that company, but somebody bought it and actually needed a tax credit. And that's the last thing I'll probably talk about is the financial part of it. So you get a tax credit if you owe X amount of taxes. If you spend the money, then you just don't have to pay your taxes in. And that's a lot what drives the investment too. This is a system we've added on to twice, because the customer just, that's, yeah, you started with this, do-it-yourselfer. Actually, we did this first part turnkey. A lot of my customers, I mean, they work with me and I show them how to do it. I'm like, next time you do it, you can do a lot of it yourself. And people like that. I mean, they just, because really what I'm doing there is I'm educating all my customers. So then all my customers become my salespeople, so I don't have to advertise. So just about all the work we do is all referrals. So it's kind of, it's way more fun way to do business than advertising. And we also, originally this customer had a wind turbine in their property. So this guy here is ready to go off the grid. He's got a 10 kilowatts wind turbine, 11 kilowatt solar system. All he needs to do now is spend 10 grand on batteries. He's done. People say, what do you mean he's done? I go, tell the power company to come pull the meter. He's done. He doesn't need it. People find that totally, they think I'm from another planet when I say that. I want to do it just for fun. That's my plan next year. Just put a battery pack in my house, and just call up the utility and say, you guys come get the meter. Just say, what? What do you mean come get the meter? Just come get the meter. Don't need it. We're good. So that's how close we are now with the batteries. It'll basically be the size of a dishwasher. We're probably 3, 4, 5 years away. A lot of the folks that we put solar systems in for, they'll have paid off their solar system, so that part's done. So just for the sake of being independent, they'll do it. You know, to be grid connected is still smart, you know, because you don't have to. You can do both. But the batteries are coming down in price. Back to the electric vehicle thing. What's going to drive electric vehicles is the cost. I mean, Tesla has a car right now for what, 35, 40,000? You put $1,000 down, and you get it in the next year or two. Is that right?
Yeah, it might be a little bit longer the way.
A little bit longer? I know. Things are going slower. But the whole idea is this industry, again, this guy wants to buy batteries. I get people that call once a week. I need batteries. What kind do I get? Where do I get them? Stuff like that. And that, along with electric vehicles, is going to drive the battery cost way down. Doesn't matter if they're lithium ion or the lead acid, it's going to drive the cost down. And eventually everybody's going to do it. This one here is kind of neat. This is, I got a call from a guy up in McGregor, kind of northern Minnesota. He's got a cabin. His cabin's sitting over here, 800 square foot cabin he bought, was already there, and no power. So this was just a tool shed, or half of this was, he added on to it. He had a gas generator in there. So they go up there for the weekend. If they want to run lights or run a refrigerator and do all this, you just, I guess is what folks do. If they have a cabin, they just hide the generator and get one that's really quiet, and they bring the gas with and do that. He called up, he says, how much for a solar system that would take care of my cabin? So he did some of the work himself, and I think we did this for about $6,000, $7,000. He's got the 6 solar panels on top, kind of like that. And then inside, he's got these 4 batteries, which these are lead acid AGM batteries. They're about 160 pounds a piece. 250 amp hours. So 12 times 250 is 3,000. 3,000 times 4, he's got 12,000 watts worth of batteries. Okay? So he's set up for his cabin. He's good. I mean, the only thing he's going to need to do is maybe change those batteries out 6, 7, 8 years. The cost will be down. So here he's got a complete second home that he's off the grid. Off-the-grid installation. This one was up by Canada. This guy was super remote. Was a cabin that already had big battery bank. It had 3 solar panels, just like on that boat that had been put up like 20 years ago. And he just bought the place and he said, hey, we need some new solar panels. We got a new battery bank. And this guy's in the middle of nowhere. And it's kind of neat. It's kind of neat that you can do this, you know. I mean, that you can have the benefit of being out in the wilderness and still have electricity. I mean,
wrong with those sills that have been there for so long?
Well, they were, I think it's the weather. I think, you know, after 20 years, I think they still work, but I think there was some, I don't know, you know the joints where they're soldered, where the cells are, you see all those solder joints? I think over time, the weather and the wind and everything just made that brittle or fragile. And that's the one thing I do worry about with the solar is that in manufacturing, I hope they're doing a good job and not cheating that process. Because that's probably the phone call I'm gonna get 20 years from now. These solar panels aren't working, and that's the issue. And then we hope the manufacturer's around. So that's just part of the little bit of the risk that's left. This is another fun, simple project. I get a lot of people that call and say, I just want to buy one panel. You know, you can get them on eBay, but then they got to ship it. I don't know what I'm buying. Can I buy just one panel? I'm like, yep. This is just a gal that wanted a solar panel on her old camper. So went up there to help her mount that, and her friend is building a tiny house. And this thing is crazy. It's like the ones you see on TV. You go inside, and then I just set her up with the equipment that she needs for a couple solar panels, and then she can have electricity when she's moving that tiny house around. So you get all these different applications. You got the big solar farms, you got the camper. So it's kind of fun. And then this is the other thing I'm working on. And I want to be a resource for anybody here in the YES group for sure. As far as getting panels at a discount, or just any equipment that you guys need, I can help. But this was an idea that I had last winter. So I'm sitting at home thinking, what can I sell in the wintertime? And I do ice fish a little bit. And a lot of these guys have, have fancy fish houses, and they got to run a generator. Well, this is what I plan on pulling out on the lake this winter. You know, you would only really need one panel, but I want a lot of power. I just got an old toolbox off of a truck in the back that I'm going to fill with batteries. And we'll just take that out there. And that we can sell for, with decent batteries for probably $1,500. So $2,000. By the time you figure out the cost of a generator, you got to go get the gas. You got to listen to it. It stinks. And this here, the way I want to sell this is you just take this, you just transplant all the equipment to your fish house. And then you can do whatever you want with the trailer. So rather than have to go buy all the parts and pieces, put this all together, just buy that, transplant it to your fish house, and then you got a trailer.
What if you just left it on the trailer? And then
Just leave it on, just pull wherever you want. Pull it to your cabin, pull it wherever,
That's-
you know?
You can hook it up to your house.
Yeah. So it's just been fun. What else? Oh, and the last thing I think is really important about this industry is I gotta write this on here real quick. This blew my mind. So about 6-7 years ago, there's an organization called Grassroots Solutions in Minneapolis, and they get this funding from the Pew Trust. I don't know if you're aware of this, Allie? Okay. It's this worldwide organization that funds colleges and different lobbyists to move policies forward. And they needed somebody that was in renewable energy from Minnesota to go to Washington, D.C. for this conference on tax policy, right? This totally blew me away. So, if you invest in natural resources, since 1913, you get tax breaks, major tax breaks. And guess what's listed in our tax code under natural resources? Oil, timber, hydro, gas. All the ones we've had since then that we were aware of. Well, guess what we weren't aware of in 1913? Wind power and solar, right? Guess what? This still isn't in our tax code. So every 3, 4, 5 years, you'll see on the 10 o'clock news, all those liberals were at Washington again or at the Capitol again trying to get tax breaks for solar. And that gets back to the local guy that says to me, we're tired of subsidizing you guys. Seriously, I get that all the time. People think they're subsidizing the solar industry. The only reason that people have to go to Washington DC is all we want is the same treatment these guys get. So it's the other way around. The oil guys will say, yeah, these wind and solar guys got their hands out. Wrong. They've been getting tax breaks since 1913. So in our tax code, this is still not a natural resource, right? So for lots of companies that want to spend, there's organizations in the world that have billions of dollars. If they can develop a coal mine or a coal plant and different resources, that's what they do to make money, because we want the electricity, then they're going to invest in this because it saves them so much. So that's why it's important on the policy side. That's why Minnesota is so far ahead of everybody else. That's why you see all these solar farms going up. They put a value on this. That's why there's so much investment coming into Minnesota for solar. There's 150 solar farms in Minnesota. I think 75 of them are done. There'll be another 75 next year, and we just keep going. Every town, I believe in 10 years, every town will have one. So, anyways, there's my little blip on the solar business.
Excellent. You guys got any questions? It's interesting, your trailer there is exactly what we're looking at making at just a more modest level, right?
Well, I threw that in there last night, I'm like, these guys have already done something like that.
When do you want to explain what we're thinking of for our project?
Well, I mean, we're essentially, for our electric car, we want, so we don't have to plug in there, that we can use solar at the competition to charge our batteries.
Yeah,
So we're hoping to build that this year, something like that.
okay, that makes sense.
And to get a little PR out of it, we were going to put in the plugins with the USB ports as well,
Okay.
and then just put it out in the commons.
Absolutely.
Commons and let students charge their phones.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. There's so much stuff off the shelf. You go to Menards, Northern Tool and Equipment, you can buy the inverter, and it's plug and play. You guys can handle it, for sure. So,
Awesome.
and I'm right here in town, so you guys need help, just let me know. I'll come over and show you what I know. And we'll learn something from you guys.
All right.